show coming from the RAC store. With this back in the Mac in the back flow. Let's go, chillin' with raccoons by the back door. Take calls so you can stake more. All I wanna do is making dough, right? But I found this crew and doing alright. We RAC will bitch, ready to fight. So many raccoons ready for the boss life. I might fly high like a kite, right? But always ready for a shite for the right price. Raccoon supply has the right price, giving you respect if it's likewise. So I'm buying all the mean guys with the clean heart. Read between lies, laser beam through lean eyes. Warrior with clean lies, trash mouth, mean smile, be wise. NFT wise, fuck with these guys. It's the RAC lab from the back lab. 110 of these in my backpack. Crazy RAC lab from the stash app. RAC will take a lead in this haystack.
Good morning, RAC FM.
What the fuck?
It's 0800 EST,
No.
and what does the O stand for?
No.
Oh my
No,
god.
stop. No, don't applaud that. No. That was the worst intro I've ever heard. No, hold on. Please. Shh. Alright, run that shit back. We're gonna do that shit one more fucking time. I'm gonna show you how it's done properly.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was a cold-blooded, premeditated murder.
So I'm buying all the mean guys with the clean heart. Read between lies, laser beam through lean eyes. Warrior with clean lies, trash mouth, mean smile, be wise. NFT wise, fuck with these guys. It's the RAC lab from the back lab. 110 of these in my backpack. Crazy RAC lab from the stash app. RAC will take a lead in this haystack. It's the
Good morning, RAC FM! Oh, that's how it's done. Today's Monday, the 10th of April, and this is the RAC FM LSD Summit.
We have your woman Bbandz from the block and Brucey Boy picking up the co-host roles today. Bbandz, are you pumped for today? Is this a subject that you like interested in, Bbandz? Are you knowledgeable on what's going on?
Okay, so the liquid staking derivatives, I'm not a fan of them, so
Oh shit.
that's just how I feel.
Oh shit.
I don't like them.
Oh
Is that what we're talking about? Liquid staking derivatives?
shit.
Correct. So,
Yes, no. I won't be a fan of them again.
Oh shit.
fingers crossed, and you'll come with the tough questions today then, right? And Bruce, would you like to preface this tonight by explaining what's happened to our guest moderator? So, guys, we did plan for a guest moderator to be here, Eric, and unfortunately, Bruce has received quite a bit of a distressing message from Eric. Bruce, do you want to just outline what's happened with Eric and who he was and why he was coming on, yeah?
Yeah, let me do that. So we we invited Eric Weisen the Neck to be a guest moderator today because personally, this is my meaning that he's one of the biggest brains when it comes to tokenomics in this ecosystem, and he has a very outspoken and sometimes radical view on the subject. So that's why we invited him. And this morning he got a very unfortunate phone call that a close family member has been involved in an accident. So he's at the hospital right now. So if you do believe in stuff like prayers and that, please give a prayer out to Eric and his family. Yeah, that's kind of the message.
Cheers for that, Bruce. Yeah, and we send our prayers and wishes, etc., to Eric and his family. I do know that he was really looking forward to it. So, guys, yeah, let's do a very quick intro and just say, what's this about? Why have we kind of wanted to call this, etc.? Well, a few weeks ago, we did like a randomness summit that was really beneficial, very informative. And you heard from Bbandz there. I think a lot in the community are in the middle ground when it comes to LSDs. I think there's a contingent of Desians who are always going to be Desians, who are always going to love these kinds of players. There's obviously like retail who are a little bit wet behind the ears, really don't know maybe what they're getting into. And then there's us guys who have been around the industry for quite a long time. We've seen a lot of things come and go, etc. And we're cautious. And really, I personally, I would love tonight to sway me to being really strong in supporting LSDs, as a viable financial product. And I think if we can just maybe get over some of those hurdles, some of those concerns tonight, that would be great. And, keep it a little bit philosophical as much as anything else as well. Right, let's welcome Finn, first of all. We've got the third musketeer has joined the panel. Hello, Finn. Thank you for joining.
Oh, yeah, GM gang. I'm just here for the LSD. 5 hits in, I'm ready to go. Let's go.
We thought you might enjoy today, brother. Yeah. Especially since you've been enjoying your stake and derivative products. I can see you've been enjoying yourself recently, right? Right, so guys, let's see who we've got. We're going to bring everybody up, right, guys? Just come in, request away. We know exactly who's coming in, etc. Right from Liquid. We've got Vish, I believe. Hello there, Vish. Hi, from Quicksilver. Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good, young man. Yeah, thanks for joining, Vish. Lovely to hear your opinion today. Yeah.
Yeah, no, awesome to be here.
Brilliant. Well, what we'll do, Vish, I mean, pretty much everybody knows you guys as, projects. I don't think there's that, the need for the intros, etc. So we will literally try to get around the room as quick as we can, Aditya. Hello there from P-Stake. Hiya.
Hi, everyone. How's it going?
Brilliant, young man. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for reaching out, right?
Yeah. Always happy to have these conversations. Excited to be here.
Yeah, like I said in the DMs, let's have that philosophical level, but to a degree where if there are people who are in that unsure camp or that cautious camp, let's see if we can push people over the finish line kind of thing, TJ, we've got TJ jumped up as well. Hi there, TJ.
How's it going, everyone? Good morning.
Yeah, sorry to hear about Eric Mind, yeah?
Yeah, thank you for putting that out there. I just sent him a message on Telegram. Super unfortunate to hear about it, but obviously prayers out to Eric and what's going on right now.
Yeah, and he was actually really pumped, I think, for tonight as well, wasn't he, Bruce? Something he was really looking forward to, because it's something that's quite close to his heart, right, Bruce?
Absolutely. Eric has a passion for stuff like tokenomics and game theory and all this, and I've been writing with him up to this space, and he kept not asking permission directly, but he wanted to make sure that we were okay with him coming on and maybe being a little critical and not testing, but asking some hard questions, because he really has a passion for the subject. And of course, that's what we want. So we love the neck.
Yeah, I quite like the take about, how he believes that LSDs are going to be prominent in the future, but maybe they're just lacking things in their current form. What I would actually like to start out with, I mean, Bbandz, Bruce, did you have anything to kick off before we kind of jump head on into it, or what?
Let me just run through my notes really quick.
Oh, here he goes, Bbandz on the note. My God, I'm winging it. Here he's on his notes.
Bro, I'm so new here, man. I just want to do a good job, right?
You're actually turning pages. How many pages have you got? I heard you
2 or 3. Who did he learn that from? Because I don't use notes, and I know you don't use notes. So, is this something he just did on his own, or whose notes does he even have? He's probably just ruffling empty paper. I mean, come on, Bruce.
I'm just trying to find my spliff over here. I learned it from Bbandz. She's all about organization.
Lucy, I'm so glad you gave a shout out to me, because I do keep notes, and I very agree with this lifestyle of note keeping.
But I only have very, very critical and hard questions for later in the show, it looks like.
Before that, let's just get a nice overview of LSD, so everyone's starting from the same page, because I'm sure people have different perceptions of what they are. I think it would be proper to have a starting definition to work from, perhaps.
If we were to kind of summarize, I mean, LSDs in the most layman of terms, traditionally in cryptocurrency, you could say staked assets have been classed as being illiquid, meaning kind of you can't do anything with them until they're undelegated, and then they become liquid again, where you can trade on the market. And an LSD is basically a kind of like a replica for what's staked that allows you to go maybe, I don't know, how would you say it, Finn? Maybe play some Dejin games or put it to use, put capital to use, we could say, yeah.
Instead of the assets just sitting there staked to your favorite validator, then yeah, you would get this token in return for that stake that you could then go and do other things with, like we've seen with these projects. So it just gives you a way to do something with it. But again, where you don't have that smart contract potential, I guess, for vulnerability in a normal staked asset, I think that is one of the potential, vectors that people kind of are uneasy about, is like, all right, who do we stake with for the liquid staking assets, and how secure are their smart contracts? Because that's one of the main risks associated, I believe.
That's a good point, because what I thought tonight we would start with, do the opposite of what you would normally do in a discursive conversation, right? I thought we'd start with like the negatives and hopefully arrive at the end of the show with all the positives, That would be a good place to start, Finn, right? Pitfalls. I tell you what, we'll jump in straight away with Vish, if this is okay, right? So Vish, when it comes to the various different LSD products that we have on the market, right? For your average retail user, right? Let's say your average user, not your top level Dejin. What are the biggest pitfalls with using these products?
Yeah, I think there's a few pitfalls. I think there's like a protocol level pitfall, which is, or you can say that it increases the complexity of just everything, right? It increases the complexity for the user. Like, you now have to store this token, maintain it. You're probably tempted by some DeFi. You have to do your due diligence on the DeFi, make sure you're not going to lose it, right? You might want to borrow off of it, make sure you don't get liquidated. So it adds like more stuff for like an average retail user to track, rather than, hey, I'll just take my assets. It's just sitting there earning rewards. But obviously, right, that's a choice you make, that, hey, do I want to do something more complex with my assets? I think another pitfall, another trade-off with at least, I'd say, the last gen or previous gen liquid staking protocols is that you kind of then lose your you lose your relation with your validator, right? Like, let's say I trust a validator, I know they're not going to get slashed, I delegate to them, and that's it, right? My assets are safe with that validator. But when I use a liquid staking protocol, that gets abstracted away a little bit. Now in Quicksilver, we have something where we give them a bit of a choice, but it's still not very direct, right? If in broad senses, there is like a socialization of risk and rewards with any liquid staking implementation. So if one validator gets slashed, you experience some amount of that slashing, right? So that is a potential pitfall you need to be aware of. But I think each liquid staking protocol then, has to go and find ways to minimize the slashing risk. And that is definitely like one of the things you got to watch out for when choosing a liquid staking provider. But yeah, I think high level, those are a couple of like the pitfalls I'd envision, at least.
DJ, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Vish. I think obviously when we're talking about like smart contract risk, there's basically what's implementation risk. So obviously there's a lot of ways to mitigate this. Very commonly, you have receiving third-party audits from different firms, and hopefully as the industry progresses and more of these third-party audits are being done, that the audits are as high of quality as possible. They saw a lot of these mechanisms before and understand what to look for in terms of like possible infinite mints and those types of things. And then even just like implementing like bug bounties for the smart contracts can help. Obviously, if your protocol is open source, you're able to have white hat hackers actually try and improve the security of your protocol as well. So at its core, yeah, definitely smart contract risk is probably the most prominent, and then typical for basically any type of staking done on a proof of stake network, you do run into like slashing risk as well, which in a way can be mitigated by some liquid staking protocols. But at its core, I think, yeah, those are probably the main risks.
I always appreciate the services that provide you a nice list. And I feel like most of the ones I've seen do this so that you can see, all right, who are their whitelisted validators? So you can actually kind of take a look into those and see, all right, is this the proper basket for my assets or not? And that's a good way you can take a look and do some research into, all right, who's whitelisted? What do they do? What has their history been? And that sort of thing. So you can kind of minimize some of that. And personally, I can't think of a time when I heard of a smart contract like that getting exploited. I haven't been dabbling in LSDs as long as some of these other guys. B Luna was my first one on Terra Classic before the crash. So I'm not sure. Have any of you heard of some LSDs actually getting compromised like that?
Yep. I think maybe I can talk a bit about that. So this is maybe from personal experience for PSTech as a protocol, because we also have liquid staking live for other chains, other POS chains like ETH and BNB. So there was one particular incident that happened on the BNB liquid staking landscape, wherein Anchor, one of the bigger liquid staking protocols, got exploited. And that was basically due to a private key error, wherein an attacker basically got control of the private key that minted was because it was kind of custodial in nature. So he or she basically minted a shit ton of liquid staking derivatives of BNB that were issued by Anchor, and then kind of just swapped it out for other liquid staking protocols tokens, and just unstaked. So in like a collateral damage wise, not only did it hamper Anchor users, but it hampered kind of the entire liquid staking ecosystem that was there. This is on the BNB side of things. So yeah, definitely that smart contract risk is there. But I'd say maybe also zooming out a bit, I personally see like most risk could be classified into something that one thing that kind of wrecks the liquid staking provider itself. So this could be the whole the implementation risk that is there, the security risks that are there, and the second is maybe the risk that wrecks the economic state of the underlying chain itself. So for example, if you have liquid stake for Atom, there are certain risks that could potentially hamper the economic security or economic viability of the Cosmos hub. For example, a liquid staking provider could take kind of control of the governance aspect or the chain itself in terms of producing blocks and things like that. Whereas protocol level risk, as Vish also mentioned, and other there could be a potential defect between a liquid staked Atom that is issued by a particular protocol. Yeah.
So that kind of brings me into one of my noted questions over here. Like, to quote the founder of RAI, the goal of staking is not to promote DeFi, but to promote security. Like, how do you think LSDs, or you guys think LSDs, is correlated with staking and security when you create this extra layer of complexity? TJ, maybe? Or Vishmo, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sure. I think, I was just going to say that it's pretty much inevitable. Like for any chain, like you have to strike the balance between security and DeFi. Theoretically, the most secure system would be if all assets were locked, right? If everything was locked, there's no market, there's no way to purchase, there's no way to do anything. That's absolute security, right? And obviously at the other end of like the absolute degen spectrum, but I think, in the process of like a chain's life cycle, and it also depends on like what the chain wants to achieve, right? If like a particular chain wants, and its community wants like a greater DeFi focus, then, they probably allow for or want a higher liquid stake percentage, right? Because that just promotes capital efficiency. But, if as a chain you have different purpose, or as an asset you have a different purpose, then you want to reduce that. So it's always about striking that balance, and each chain and their community sort of figure out what that balance is.
Yeah, I'll just add on quickly there as well. As I think Vish brings up a good point of it kind of depends on the purpose of the chain itself, in my opinion. I think like obviously you have or every single chain you want to have to be as secure as possible, but with like a lot of these newer chains that are arising, specifically focused on like DeFi implementations and DeFi use cases. As Vish said, with every single asset locked within the protocol, it's harder to create a market for that use case that the chain is primarily built for. So basically, yeah, like at its core, liquid staking is to continue to try to provide that economic security from staked assets and decentralize that stake as much as possible. But at the end of the day, it also kind of unlocks that liquidity that might be typically locked within the chain itself for whatever use case possible, whether it's collateral within DeFi, trading on NFTs. Like there's a wide variety of use cases that can be built on top of it. But at the end of the day, I think it kind of comes down to what the chain's trying to achieve. And I think that can even at its core come down to like what the inflation rate of the blockchain itself is. Like, are they incentivizing a certain percentage of assets being staked within the chain? Do they themselves know kind of what is best from like a security standpoint for their chain? I think are probably some things to consider as well.
That's an interesting point, because if you have this basket of validators, and if everybody on that chain decides to use that LSD, then that basket of validators is basically going to be the ones in control of that governance, right? So you have to make sure that, okay, is this good for not only the chain, but for the users as well, because you're giving up that voting power, I believe, are you not?
Yeah, I think, and maybe Vish is better to speak about this because I think Quicksilver does this really well, but at its core with like specifically a lot of the Cosmos ecosystem chains, but with it being like delegated proof of stake networks, as like a typical staker, you would choose your validator and stake your assets to them. And then kind of once you get to the next level of liquid staking, dependent on how like the delegation is done, it might be delegated to a specific set of validators, like you said, can possibly concentrate the stake within the network, depending on how much is in liquid staking protocol. But I think like with what Quicksilver is trying to do in terms of give users that that optionality of delegating again, which is pretty core to like the ethos of DPoS networks, is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think like just to add to that, like that was, I think, really well explained. Like one of the things that we're trying to do is essentially like there's two things. Like one, we let people vote on governance proposals, or at least we're working towards building that. We have like the framework in our white paper, and that's really been like the Quicksilver thing, right? You can have your Q asset, which is our liquid staking derivative, and still vote with it, right? You can have it locked in DeFi positions, you can have it anywhere really, and still participate in governance, right? That's something you can't even do with native tokens, right? If you have native tokens in a DeFi position somewhere, you're locked out of governance. So that's something we want to provide to users. And the second thing is also like a semblance of choice, right? I think on Quicksilver, we have this thing called signaling intent. So every time you stake with Quicksilver, we actually show you a bunch of validators that you can choose from. And you can go ahead and choose whatever validator you want to delegate to. And the protocol then tries its best matching your delegation to the delegation that the protocol makes. So in this way, we don't have any like whitelist of validators. It's completely open, right? Every validator that's on the native chain is also on Quicksilver. So no restriction there. So we want to maximize that and essentially let people make choices. And basically go ahead refining this module.
Are you happy now, Bruce?
Very happy. Very, very happy.
There are a couple of good talking points here, but I want to know from the guys if this is all right, right? Where we are on the kind of like mass adoption kind of curve of LSDs, because I've been noticing on my timeline a lot of like the F people starting to talk about LSDs over there on traditional Ethereum, etc. Where are we? I mean, are we like a year away from being like having mass adoption? Vish, what do you think? Where are we on this kind of mass adoption curve at LSDs? Are we right at the beginning of the journey?
I think we're at the beginning of the journey, but it's going to be a pretty short journey. Especially in Cosmos, now you have things like the LSM come out, right? It's a liquid staking module, so you don't need to unstake your assets before entering liquid staking. Now, this is unprecedented, right? On ecosystems like Ethereum, Solana, you never had this option, right? People had to undelegate, wait for that, unbonding period, lose out on those rewards. There's a lot of friction here, right? So many of your larger users would never come. Many of your users who don't care much about DeFi would never come. But now I think there is almost no choice. Like you have to liquid stake at some point, right? Because as the LSM comes out and like more people start staking, your staking APR is actually going to start reducing because your stake supply increases, right? So when this happens, essentially your inflation rate reduces or your inflation going to stakers per user reduces, and then you'll be forced to liquid stake. So I think the liquid staking adoption, like, yes, we are pretty much at the beginning, but it's a very short journey from here.
You see, that's my opinion exactly. Everyone's going to have to liquid stake at some time. I think that's the whole thing about why we're calling this summit tonight, is because there's no getting away from it. We're going to have to accept it one way or another, and it's how do you manage it the best way that you can. Bbandz, did you hear that?
Let me just, before going to Bbandz, let me just reset the room real quick for any new listeners. This is the RAC FM LSD Summit. We got TJ from Lydia Labs representing Liquid Finance. We got Vish Modali from Quicksilver Zone. We got Persistence. And we got stkADITYA. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry, man. stkADITYA from P-Stake Finance.
That's pretty much right.
Are you finished now, Bruce?
Thank you, bro. Yeah, I'm finished.
Bbandz, did you hear that though, Bbandz? The fact that like we're all going to have to get used to it, whether we like it or not. How do you feel about that, Bbandz? It's inevitable.
I don't know. I don't like them. I especially don't like and I'm sorry, guys. I used to use them liquid staking derivatives for looping and all that. Like I tried it out and everything, and I don't like it. But I know the banks are going to be trying to do something like that right now to people, where they're like, hey, you put your funds into our bank, and then we're going to give you this like receipt or token where you can go and still kind of have access to your funds. So like banks right now are planning to do something like that. So I mean, it's inevitable. It's definitely not something I'm interested in, though.
I think most banks or just savings account in general do work from a similar perspective, wherein they have something called fractionalized banking, wherein most of the funds are not liquid but used somewhere else to generate yield that you get. So in that sense, we're already there. But that is in no way safe because we've always seen bank runs that happen. I mean, the previous few weeks have been a great example of why maybe the system is inherently flawed, and maybe how the system kind of takes the best of that system, wherein staking and liquid staking kind of has parallel to maybe the whole system of fractionalized banking, as well as maybe treasuries, US treasuries has come to nature, but also kind of try to eliminate the risk that comes with it.
Yeah, I think like adding to what Aditya was saying, the problem there's two problems with banking and like how crypto and liquid staking fix that, right? The first is that there's leverage, right? Not all of your money is money, not all of your debt is debt. Right? There's always some amount of leverage there, and the worst part is we don't know what that leverage is. So that one doesn't exist in liquid staking protocols, right? You deposit 10 atoms, we can only mint so many Q atoms, right? So that is an in-protocol open source thing. So we can't do anything there. And the second sort of problem with banks is that essentially it's a trusted system. You have to trust somebody for the entire system to work. That obviously is not a thing with liquid staking protocols, at least decentralized liquid staking protocols, right? Like I know centralized exchanges have tried doing their own version of liquid staking where there is trust involved and there's very possibly leverage involved too, right? I think a good like real world example to give would be like derivatives, right? And derivatives have a pretty bad name in the financial world because of all the shit that has been done with it. But they're actually pretty fundamental instruments that are used for everything, right? Like, let's say you want to buy gold, or let's say you want to buy a house, right? I'm not going to take my house, onto the doorstep of someone. I'm not going to carry around 10 kgs of gold, and drop it in front of your door, right? There's going to be an agreement. There's going to be a paper agreement somewhere, and that's your derivative. The only thing is that here it's trustless, it's open source, it's permissionless. So yeah, hopefully that will sort of bring a new paradigm for derivatives on chain. But yeah, I think those are some of the big differences between what we're used to and what we're sort of building here.
I do want to add one quick additional point on that, because I think it kind of goes just back to like the ethos of like crypto itself and self-custody, and the fact that when, as Vish said, like if you deposit your money in a typical bank savings account, you don't really have control over how the bank like uses funds that are technically your funds, whether it's providing leverage to other people within traditional finance. But the greatest thing about crypto itself is the self-custody aspect of you're not technically required to do anything with your assets. Users are able to kind of pick which protocols they use. They pick their risk spectrum, and in return, what types of rewards that they can be exposed to. So like what was said earlier, obviously we all building these protocols believe in the future where liquid staking tokens become further integrated within these different ecosystems and the DeFi protocols within these ecosystems. But even if users are getting a smaller staking reward for staking natively, like they always have that optionality where they can choose to make that decision by themselves and aren't necessarily being forced to take on any leverage that they're not comfortable with.
Oh, I like
Another
that.
point to add there also was maybe when Vish mentioned that, I think it's a complete circle in the sense that if you, let's say, deposit 10 atom and get those 10 Q atom back, somewhere down the line, whenever those rewards accrue, you are kind of always going to be assured that if you unstake, or if you unstake to the protocol directly, you are going to get the underlying atom back, because that's always safe and staked. Unless maybe there is some attack on the protocol's exchange rate itself between these derivatives, which is something most protocols are kind of taking a very step towards mitigating in the first place. So while staking kind of mints you those certain amount at any given point in time, so does unstaking. So if you have a very large position and you simply want to come to the protocol and unstake your liquid state asset, you're going to get back. Obviously, you'll have to wait the similar waiting period as the normal staking unbonding period, which is why also there are secondary markets for liquidity that exist. But yeah, at maybe the truth is that you'll always get those kind of assets back if you want to unstake it.
I heard that magic word earlier, Finn. Did you hear that one, Brucey, earlier? That leverage. Is that something? I think that's something at the heart of the conversation, isn't it, about LSDs? I mean, is it a form of like leverage, guys? Can we agree on that, or is that an incorrect statement?
I wouldn't say it's leverage. I would say it's just utilizing assets that are there. I mean, leverage to me at least means now I'm taking that and I'm borrowing against it. When you're staking it, you're just getting that, whatever the inflation percentage is, basically. You're not actually leveraging it. I guess it depends what you mean by leverage, but yeah.
Yeah. Maybe not leveraging the traditional sense, but you are leveraging it a bit like a kind of locked asset, yeah?
Yeah, I think one of the ways I like thinking about leverage is like when you're trying to leverage an asset, you're trying to get its future benefits or its future yield or utility today, right? And you're paying a fee for that. That to me is like one of the centerpieces of leverage, right? But with liquid staking, you're not really doing that. What you're actually doing is transferring a position that's difficult to handle, and you're receiving a position that's easier to handle, right? Like the example I used before, it's like gold and paper gold, that it's more akin to that.
So I have a question, Vish. You said it's like gold and paper, but like, is the representation of the gold and the paper different? Like the gold is this much, but what you have on the paper is either a little bit less, or is it exactly the same?
That depends on like what sort of paper gold you buy. Now, I think with many of them, they charge a fees, so it's essentially what you have minus fees.
So it's like the same thing when you get like a liquid derivative token, a liquid staking derivative token. You put in your token, and then you get the liquid staking derivative. It is not a 1-to-1. It's worth like a little bit less than your original asset is. Correct?
So how most of these liquid staking protocols work is that it's probably going to be worth more, right? Because we just to explain the architecture a bit. We all have like a pool, if you were to think of it like that, and we accrue staking rewards, right? So if you enter the pool on day 2, the value of qAtom is higher than Atom, right? So the amount of qAtom you receive would be slightly lower. So the value of a staking derivative, or at least the sort of staking derivatives we have today, keep increasing over time. I think the P-Stake guys call it the exchange rate model. I think that's a great way to put it. But yeah, to answer your question in a more simple way, essentially like the value of the qAtom keeps increasing over time. But all of it is there.
Wait, how does the qAtom keep increasing over time? That's only if people are buying it and entering the liquid staking pool, right?
No, so like a good way to think about this is like a vault and key, right? Like, let's say you staked, 100 Atom on Quicksilver. It's essentially locked in this pool and it's earning staking rewards, right? And you get a qAtom issued against it. Now, it's not done 1:1 because a qAtom is worth the principal that's in the pool plus the staking rewards it has accrued, right? So we have to somehow show that these staking rewards have accrued, right? We can't distribute it directly via wallets for technical reasons. So that's why we use the exchange rate model. Any staking derivative is worth your principal plus the staking rewards it has accrued, which is why it's worth more. And this worth is created by its redeemability. So you can redeem your staking derivative for your principal plus rewards at any time from the protocol itself.
So it's like an inflationary token. Am I understanding?
Yeah, I mean, the rewards are generated through inflation in most cases. So your proof of stake positions are inflationary, your staking positions to begin with.
You see that it's basically a relationship between these two assets that are there. Whereas, for example, asset here is Atom. The liquid stake Atom is either qAtom or stkADITYA. So this rate basically defines how much stkADITYA would mint if you deposit Atom or if you liquid stake Atom, or how much Atom you would receive if you want to unstake stkADITYA. But the thing is that this rate is kind of increasing in perpetuity because every day these Atom staking rewards are getting accrued and they're being distributed in the form of an increase in this rate. So it's basically, if you divide the supply of stkADITYA by Atom, you get a relationship rate, and that is what this rate basically is. It defines the interoperability between these two tokens.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Go on, Finn.
That's where, like, on a protocol like Eris, I saw Philip in the crowd here. They have this arbitrage section where you can look at the different LSDs and see if there's any good arbs in there between, like say Luna and B Luna, or Kuji and B Kuji, or I forget what their liquid one of Kuji's that just came out, but you can check and see, and sometimes you'll get a good like 2, 3, 4% in there. And you can just flip it real quick, do the slow burn, and then end up with more initial than what you put in, just because of that ARB opportunity.
I think that's pretty great, and that's pretty important too for maybe these ARBs to exist because they help kind of balance these rates over time at any given point of time.
So,
I just want to say, Philip, you have been invited up. You just come up if you want. And that's Philip from Eris Protocol.
It certainly is, yeah. We reached out to Eris, or we tagged him in the original one. Finn was like, if you can get Philip in, that would be a great addition. Guys, I would love to ask, Aditya, we'll go to you first. A lot of people tell me that LSDs are only good if you're, looping. Is that particularly true or not? Is that the most kind of like productive form of using your liquid staking? I've heard about the loops with like, I think Umi Stride, a couple of people were running that loop, doing quite all right. So yeah, ADITYA. Is it true that LSDs are only good for like looping, for real D's and stuff?
I'd say maybe it's one aspect of it, maybe the leverage liquid staking loop that is there. But then that loop also kind of gives you diminishing returns after like 3 or 4 loops. Although it does make the system more efficient in terms of because there is an availability to do this, people will do it. But then, yeah, it's not only limited to that. That kind of also goes way beyond that in terms of it helps make capital efficient in an ecosystem wherein the lack of liquidity is the biggest problem, at least in Cosmos overall. Because we have these chains with very high staking rewards, a chain, as Vish mentioned, right? A chain kind of has to decide if they want to go down the staking route, wherein they need maybe a very secure chain. For example, Noble could need a very, very secure chain to issue these native assets that are coming to Cosmos. They might not necessarily require a DeFi use case for their token if it comes, right? So what liquid staking allows you to do is at the end, right, kind of not have that option of staking or DeFi, but staking and DeFi. And because these tokens would be the collateral for most things, they're naturally bound to not replace, but mirror the asset that lies underneath. So whatever Atom could do, qAtom and stkADITYA could and should be able to do. Whereas leverage liquid staking is one aspect of it. There are much more kind of interesting propositions that also open up. One could also be, if you are that decent, but also being risk averse, is that you could just open up, a quick, have a delta neutral long position on Atom. Wherein if you have Atom, you maybe liquid stake half of it, you borrow against it, and you maybe sell an asset. And once maybe that depreciates in price, you buy it again and then close the loop. So obviously it allows you to do much more decent things, but also allows you to do the things that are possible in DeFi with much more capital efficiency.
So I have a quick question. The liquid staking derivatives, do you get them just from staking? Is it a one-sided pool, or are you staking, are you taking 2 tokens so you can get your LSD? Like when you put your money into a liquidity pool and stuff like that, is this a liquidity pool token, or is just single-sided staking and that's how you get the token?
Yeah, it's single-sided in nature. So for example, if you want to liquid stake your Atom, you go to Quicksilver or you go to P-Stake, you deposit Atom, you get qAtom or you get stkADITYA, or if you go to Stride, you get stkADITYA similarly. And these different liquid staking protocols kind of allow you to liquid stake not just one asset, which is Atom, but other assets too.
And then Bbandz, if you wanted to, I believe there are some LPs that utilize these, but in itself, it's not a double-sided thing.
Okay, but you can use a liquid staking derivative and put it in a liquidity pool, and then hopefully you don't get impermanent loss, which you probably will. But okay,
you can do that on Windex though, right now, yeah, with Juno and WinJuno, right? Can't you do that on Windex right now?
Yeah, and I think Astroport and Spectrum also have a couple of vaults on that.
Hey Finn, we've got Terra Royalty. Would you like to introduce your guest of honor there, Finn?
Man, Philipp's been so cool. Eris Protocol has been awesome. They were the first ones to create a smart contract that redirects yield to Terra Spaces and to Angel Protocol and even to Lunk DAO for burning Lunk for some reason. Yeah, Eris is super awesome. Philipp, awesome to have you up here, man. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the shout out. Sorry I came in late because I'm currently at the airport, so it's very busy here. But I followed the conversation, really important, interesting stuff. Regarding why liquid staking makes sense, it just makes capital a lot more efficient because you can use it for different purposes while also securing the network. So that means these liquid staking derivatives, they work just like a normal wallet. You have to think of it. If you provide, for example, Luna into our amplifier, it just gets staked with the whitelisted validators, and in return you get this kind of token back, which is your receipt. So with this kind of receipt, you can come back later, 1 day, 2 days, 1 month, and get back your Luna, including the rewards. And this is the basic how it works. And what we have done is we are in progress of building this kind of DGEM paradise at Eris, where you can use these liquid staking derivatives in different kind of ways. So like Finn said, you can use your yield and donate it to a project you like. It is also very similar to how Alliance works. The Terra Alliance module, I'm not sure how deep everybody is in it, but it's essentially something like you can now use mLuna and stake it on a different chain and receive rewards of this other chain again back to your mLuna. And yeah, and it enables capital to be used in DeFi. And that also means, for example, pools, liquidity providers right now need to be incentivized to provide liquidity. For example, Osmosis is paying 1 to 10 usually. So that means for each $1 revenue, trade revenue they pay around $10 of incentives in their own token. And with the usage of liquid staking derivatives, the network inflation is being used to pay LP positions. So this also makes it more efficiently, and it doesn't require as many incentives as previously. And the same is for collateralization markets or stable coin minting platforms, lending platforms, because liquidity providers and degens that want to leverage, like you said, can now deposit their mLuna or Atom or staked Atom in some kind of way and borrow money on it. And this makes it so efficient because it's something in the traditional world you need to think about. You have some kind of investment portfolio, and based on your investment portfolio, you can now borrow money and really use the money without leaving your original asset. And this makes it just super important in DeFi.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great overview, Philip. I think basically kind of echoing off what everyone just said is other than, or basically like anything that can happen on the application layer with the native asset should be able to occur with the liquid staking token. It's all basically, I think, comes down to like support and acceptance within like the broader protocols within the ecosystem. So obviously, as the liquid staking token becomes more universally accepted, the more utility that particular liquid staking token has. And I think obviously this is a Cosmos space, and as the Cosmos ecosystem continues to grow, we'll see more utility out there other than just your typical leverage. Like you can obviously apply these types of things to like NFT ecosystems as well, but
I think Philip, you have a hot mic there.
Oh, he's running to the gate, Home Alone style.
Yeah, about to miss his flight. All right, yeah, but I think one thing that I'm and our team's like particularly interested in and keeping our eyes on is just what's going on with Ethereum right now. Like obviously, I think probably the second biggest upgrade to their proof of stake network approach from the merge itself is in like the next couple of days with the Chapella upgrade allowing for Ethereum withdrawals. And I think once we see that occur, obviously Ethereum's application layer is kind of the most robust and diverse right now in crypto. And once this kind of big pain point for Ethereum withdrawals occurs and is available to users, I'm really curious to see how utility within that ecosystem itself grows. Whether that we have possible restaking through Eigenlayer with a lot of these growing NFT marketplaces like Blur. You can possibly see liquid staking tokens be accepted as bids on NFTs, which could possibly reduce like the liquidity spread for NFT trading itself. And then obviously just with the vast amount of DeFi that's occurring there as well, see possibly new use cases. But yeah, bringing it back even just to Cosmos, I think being able to observe what those types of things happen as Cosmos continues to grow and build out the different amount of app chains and use cases within these general purpose smart contracting layers. I think the use case itself of liquid staking token will definitely evolve just past like leverage looping, which it might be the first thing that comes to people's minds.
Yeah, I think currently even on like Stargaze, there was a discussion about using Stride and Quicksilver's ST and Q stars to mint NFTs, right? Because that was like a problem on Stargaze, because people had a lot of their stars locked up in staking, but they would like to participate in these NFT mints that happen, and they run out pretty fast. So you can't afford to unstake that, wait for 21 days, and then try jumping on a mint. You need to be quick on that. So liquid staking can even do a lot of this non-DeFi stuff, as Finn was talking about. A lot of stuff to be done.
I maybe want to expand a bit on TJ's point on Ethereum liquid staking landscape and maybe where Cosmos is. I think what that the Shanghai Kapila upgrade has obviously put in liquid staking into the limelight, with withdrawals being the kind of the word that everyone talks about, but also kind of, you could say, pushes or bootstraps or rather helps deposits in a way too, because that withdrawals was not present in the first place. So that was a major barrier for people to liquid stake as well, because there was no native unstaking present in liquid staking as such for Ethereum. Well, that was not been the case for Cosmos. When maybe Peachstake also launched its STK Atom back in 2022, the first version that was rather issued on Ethereum at that time, there were kind of unstaking that was present because we were in that proof of stake landscape entirely. But then that was not present, that has not been present in Ethereum. Hence the whole issue around depeg as well. There was a whole big issue with Lido's ST depegging. That was also due to the fact because the arbitrage couldn't complete that circle because unstaking was not present. But then Cosmos has been a landscape wherein these things, these building blocks have been there since kind of the eternity of time, wherein maybe the things such as LSM and interchain account liquid staking is something that kind of propels this into the next array that is there.
That when I heard about Stargaze and stuff there, that piqued my curiosity a little bit. So, guys, for all of you here, I'll go over to Vish there, because Vish mentioned this. Vish, outposts. What exactly do outposts mean to liquid staking, like protocols like yourselves?
In what context are you referring to outposts?
Just when you were talking about, being able to use bids and stuff on Stargaze and things, yeah? I mean, is that an ideal outpost for you, or?
Yeah, so for example, right, we already have Stargaze onboarded. We mint Q stars, people can liquid stake stars with us. So the problem we'd been hearing was that, hey, we have all these stars locked up, but we want to buy NFTs with it, because you want to secure the chain with your stars token, but you also want to mint NFTs, participate in the ecosystem that's growing there, right? So yeah, something like that is a definite pain point that liquid staking can solve. So yeah, I guess, that's definitely the kind of stuff we'd be looking out for.
I can imagine that's got to be one of the major use cases, Finn, right? Oh, did Finn just have a hot mic there? What do you think about that? Bbandz? Oh, he's
I think that's exactly the ideal use case, I believe, for a chain like Stargaze, is to be able to do that one day, and any NFT based chain, because it's hard to walk that balance of staking enough to get enough rewards to make it worthwhile for the inflation, and then now how do I buy stuff? If all my stuff is staked, the rewards maybe aren't enough to do this next mint, but if you can utilize those liquid assets to then do the mint, sure, it's going to take away from your overall pot, but if you're going to mint this and then flip it and add it back to the pot, or whatever you're doing on the chain, I think it makes perfect sense.
Now then,
but wouldn't it cost more liquid staking derivative tokens to purchase that NFT?
It depends what the arb rate was, right? Sometimes it could cost less if there's a really good rate happening for the liquid token. You would spend less of them. And I mean, that all obviously it depends what the market lists them as in, how the pricing works, obviously, but it could.
Well, that brings us up onto Ambedo's point. Guys, we've had a question from the artist on the RAC FM team, right? And we'll kick off with TJ with this one, see what he thinks. TJ, he says, what about this kind of never-ending conundrum that you guys have got? Trying to maintain what you would clarify as your ideal peg for the staked asset derivative. Is that a big fight that you guys have, is maintaining that ideal peg that you want?
Yeah, I think honestly it's a great question, and we said very early on. Unfortunately, Eric wasn't able to be on this spaces because I think this is a question that Eric probably would have asked anyways. I think that's probably in terms of like after we get from the protocol risks that we talked about earlier in terms of like smart contracts and stuff. A lot of the incentivization that goes on from liquid staking protocols that other than just to gain new users is to try to incentivize this peg to be as close as possible. So I don't think it's ever going to be perfect necessarily, and it probably shouldn't be perfect just for the fact that you do have some small additional risks when using liquid staking protocols, such as smart contract risk. And then it is a bit different, I would say, within the Cosmos ecosystem itself, where our unbonding period of 21 days is a lot longer than some other typical chains. Like I think Solana is 2 days. So that's obviously a vast difference in terms of illiquidity and even the opportunity cost of missing out on some rewards when you're doing your typical unstaking. So with that being said, I think a lot of incentives from our protocols are going specifically towards LPs to try to keep this peg as close as possible. And then obviously, even making the arbitrage opportunities to users very clear in terms of if the peg is, or the liquidity premium is past a certain point, that you have a very good chance of performing this arbitrage by just doing a delayed unstake or the typical unbonding. So I think that's one thing that I'm super interested in, and I see some other people with their hands up. So I'll let them talk and see what else they have to say.
Yeah, Philip.
Hey, so the pack, we just released another product 2 weeks back or 1 week back, and this is the ARB Vault, and this means we are automating this whole slow burn arbitrage mechanism for any kind of user to have it accessible. And this is really the origin how we founded Eris, because we wanted to provide the most stable market for liquid staking derivatives. And that means users can deposit Luna, and we have these arbitrage bots running in the background, and they use this Luna pool to arbitrage to AMP Luna, B Luna, any kind of Luna at the moment, and slowly unbond it. And after 21 days, it will do it again. And this keeps this peg more stable. And any kind of reward fees we are taking are also shared with AMP Luna holders. That means we are always distributing fees back to the original stakers. This is one of the examples of how to hold the peg, or how we try to hold the peg better, and even allow users to participate.
That's good at that mind, Philip. I'm going to look into that mind for sure.
Yep. I think on the peg perspective, obviously it's quite important for the peg to almost be equal to the exchange rate that is going on a protocol, but that wouldn't be the case necessarily every time because of maybe the secondary markets that exist within these dexes. But then it is also kind of arbitrageurs who kind of come into the picture who do the job of maintaining the peg. But then I think maybe speaking from a non-liquid staking protocol perspective, coming to maybe dexes in Cosmos overall, we've seen kind of improvements towards welcoming liquid staking in general, whether, maybe that is, I know that Forge is launching a WebMOS, I think today or tomorrow, that is bringing units of V3 concentrated liquidity to Cosmos. There is obviously Crescent with ranged pools that is there. We have a pool there too. And there was recently a DEX called Dexter launched on the Persistence Core 1 chain itself. And that brought the concept of metastable pools to kind of Cosmos for liquid stake assets. Where metastable pools are one of the most efficient pools for liquid stake assets because they take into consideration this exchange rate or this relationship that is there between this asset and the liquid stake asset at any given point of time. And that is how it kind of also adjusts the pool automatically. So I think while liquid staking is adopting, the liquidity for liquid stake assets is also adopting with these dexes in Cosmos. And that kind of also helps you maintain the peg after all.
Thank you for that, man. So when we're talking about the future of things, how is the future of the Cosmos security how is the future for the LSDs when we're talking about new security protocols implemented in the Cosmos, like mesh security and shared security and stuff like that?
We do have to talk about the LSM here, I guess, because I think inherently for the Cosmos Hub to be that interchain security provider or service provider, it needs that high secure aspect of it. But then that is also a problem of Cosmos Hub being one of the earliest chains is that Atom is also the most accepted collateral that is there. So it kind of is a conundrum between a secure chain versus Atom in DeFi. Obviously, liquid staking solves that, but I'd say more than anything, things like LSM would put us on like a exponential rise here for liquid staking in general. I think it's very well the forum post that went out for LSM on Cosmos Hub by Zaki. I was very appalled by maybe one sentence that said that this is maybe also obviously for the adoption of liquid staking, but the LSM is kind of a regulatory framework for liquid staking. So that liquid staking obviously booms, but in a manner that doesn't affect the hub or the Cosmos ecosystem. I see Vish is crying. I don't know why.
Yeah, I was like, what's your stance here, Vish?
No, I mean, I was just that statement where, it's like a regulatory framework for liquid staking. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But like, I think there's many different ways to do liquid staking, right? These like guardrails that exist are good initially, but like, I think over time that we need to like, have a system where, different models of liquid staking can play out. So yeah, like the regulatory framework sentence here didn't really resonate with me too much, but like, I see the intention behind, the entire, that entire segment of the post.
Got your finger, Vish. Philipp, you have anything to say?
Well, I only heard partial bits of it, but if it's about this proposal on Cosmos Hub regarding the regulation of liquid staking derivatives, I am totally against it. Because DeFi flourishes in a free market. And for example, these kind of regulations are very specifically targeted to very specific liquid staking providers because of how they do delegations and how they do governance. Because the Cosmos Hub wants to limit the power liquid staking derivative has in the system. So they want to just limit the total amount of Atom staked with this kind of provider. But for example, we have a completely different model of how governance and delegations work. We are completely free market based. So users and LP positions can both decide how the delegations of the protocol work. And we already have a proxy governance system enabled. That means our end users decide how Eris Protocol votes on the governance. And that means it's really open and market based. It's based on a Gauge principle where you can leverage your own voting power by locking up more liquidity. So the voters and the delegators are very closely aligned to the network economic value, and this is not the case for other liquid staking derivatives. Like, for example, I just named Stride right now. 50% of the Stride token is owned by the team and partners and close collaborators. And that means they have total control over the whole delegation and also the governance power of any kind of chain that is connected. And Stride holders might not be aligned with the goals of Cosmos Hub or of other blockchains. And this is what we make different. And we don't have any kind of token, external token that takes over the control from the users. But instead, we always have the liquid staked assets. For example, on Kuchiri we launched, Kuchi will have control over the delegations and the governance and not any kind of other token. So these kind of regulations that are targeted based on the old model of how governance is being done would not apply to Eris, in my opinion.
I think it's really interesting that... Sorry, Vish, go on.
No, go ahead. I was going to say... Okay, I'll just finish off and continue. I was going to say, that's like a similar problem we also face with Quicksilver, right? Like we've always advocated for, unlimited validator selection. So like you can choose any validator and things like validator bond and stuff like that sort of go against that philosophy and like the implementation. It's not that we can't not implement it. It's fixable, but the problem is, is that like the direction we want to go in? There's also like decentralization issues, right? When you have things like validator bonds, you have larger validators who, let's say, have an agreement with the liquid staking protocol to get some stake from them. They have a good reason to go ahead and invest money into this validator bond. right? But while smaller validators who are usually out of liquid staking sets, they're essentially barred off from receiving liquid staking delegations from protocols like Quicksilver, who would have given them that delegation if somebody asked us to give them that delegation. So, it's like there's many models of liquid staking around. So, yeah, maybe something more inflexible on that would be, I think, a good way forward.
Yep. I was just maybe complimenting on what Philipp said about having the base token itself serve as a governance for the liquid staking protocol. I know Lilo had considered doing this a few months back, wherein they had a discussion around allowing STETH holders to kind of also be able to govern Lido protocol itself. So have a dual governance model wherein the alignment is there between the chain that maybe the liquid staking provider is servicing and also maybe the protocol user itself also. That was quite interesting.
And when talking about the user, how does in this there's a lot of liquid staking protocols and reasonable enough, like you can make a decent amount of profits on it. But how do the user find the best protocol for him or her when there are so many different protocols being right now?
Was that for anyone in particular, Bruce?
No, that was just to the room. Yeah, I was just about to direct it to TJ if he wants to answer.
Yeah, I can start it off. It's probably going to just come down, honestly, to each specific user. Like, I think I said it a bit earlier, but everyone does have like their own risk spectrum, and in terms of like what they're trying to get out of their liquid staking protocol. And what's one thing that is pretty nice about there being a lot of different liquid staking protocol providers itself is that you do kind of have the spectrum in terms of what type of security and like decentralization trade-offs they make as well. So when it comes to like how a user should actually decide on which protocol to use, I think obviously from a community perspective as well as our protocols itself, communication and education behind what our protocol actually does and the security risk behind them is very important. Obviously, transparency in terms of how our protocol like works from a technical architecture perspective, how our delegation works, and even probably being transparent about how deep our liquidity is within a secondary market are all probably pretty important things that should be considered by a user. But yeah, at the end of the day, it is kind of up to the user to choose which protocol works best for them.
Thanks, TJ. Vish, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think I largely agree with that. I think, also going forward, I think each liquid staking protocol will focus on their own unique thing. And that will be sort of their differentiator, and like users can go off of that. I think, for example, Pstake has this, pretty cool rapid unstaking thing. That's really cool. Quicksilver, we let people choose their validators. So like I think going down the line, every protocol will sort of build in their own domain of expertise and direction. And I think that's great for the ecosystem, right? Because then you have a bunch of protocols that offer you everything. So stake would be spread around all of these different directions. And yeah, I think that in general will provide like much greater choice for the user.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think there's going to be these unique key points maybe that attract someone to a particular liquid staking protocol. As just mentioned, if someone, for example, right now or whenever intent signaling goes live, if someone wants to choose their validator and it's only Quicksilver that allows to do that, someone is naturally going to be gravitate toward going there. But I think maybe the kind of the vision for us or for Positions overall is to be that hub that optimizes for user experience for liquid staking, wherein if you with Pstake maybe being someone that issues these STK assets or liquid stake assets on the chain itself, there are other DeFi primitives being built by external teams on the chain itself that cater to liquid staking. For example, we had a DEX called Dexter go live just 2 weeks ago that kind of focuses on liquidity for liquid stake assets. We also have this another protocol called Bamboo that is going to launch on the chain soon enough, which is a borrowing lending market focused on liquid stake assets. So that is maybe where the unique proposition of all these liquid staking providers is going to lie. Is what maybe is that unique angle that you offer to users.
Well, that's a perfect opportunity, Bruce, to bring in the question that we've got from the Discord, right?
Exactly.
So do you wanna find out what the take is on Babylon? Yeah, do you wanna?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead. So Ambido, one of our artists, got another question going, and he want to know what your takes on Babylon protocol is, and when you can leverage the timestamps from the BTC, from the Bitcoin, the BTC, to lower the staking time, unbonding time. Sorry. So how would this affect LSDs? You want to take this one, Philipp? He might be busy in the airport. We can start with you, Adja. Am I getting rocked here?
No, I don't hear anybody. We're all. Oh, hey, Vish.
No, hey, I think I hear you. Well, at least from my end, I'm not actually too sure of the architecture of Babylon and how that might impact liquid staking. I'm meeting them soon, so hopefully I have more insights soon enough. So yeah, I guess from my end, I'm not really sure.
Just handing my phone here. So Babylon's gonna use timestamping from the blockchain of Bitcoin to heighten security, and in that way you can lower your unbonding time when unstaking stuff. So this is gonna give a higher unbonding time on probably a lot of chains. And how this gonna affect the unbonding time of LSDs? Does that make a question a bit more clear?
Yeah. I think the problem was that I don't fully understand how Babylon itself works. But I think from what you said, if it lowers the unbonding period, most liquid staking protocols, just go are designed to just use the native unbonding period, the unbonding parameter. So if that changes, if that becomes lower or higher, the liquid staking protocols should just be able to adapt to that. That's on the technical level. Unlike the use case level, I think even if the unbonding period is super low or even removed, I think liquid staking will still have its place, right? Because liquid staking does two things: liquidity and reusability. So let's say even if the unbonding period comes down a lot, you still need liquid staking for that other stuff. You're using it in DeFi and stuff. That's why in ecosystems like Solana, where unbonding period is really low, you still have a lot of liquid staking activity going on.
Thanks, Fish. Robo, you have anything to add to the question?
Actually, he sparked my curiosity there when he mentioned Solana, and he's like, there's plenty of liquid staking activity going on over there. So Cosmos, is Cosmos pretty much behind most other kind of ecosystems in regards to liquid staking? Are we quite in our infancy?
Yeah. We're very much in infancy. I think liquid staking on Solana has been there for a year and a half, almost. But in Cosmos, I think the biggest problem in Cosmos was there was no way to deploy code really, right? P-Stake was operating on some next level model using multi-sigs and stuff. It was a real feat, but there was no simple way to just deploy code, because you couldn't deploy a contract on the Cosmos Hub. Before interchain accounts, there was no way you could connect to the Cosmos Hub. So how do you provide derivatives for this chain that you can't properly connect to? And that only became possible last year, which is when we started building it. P-Stake started transitioning from that model to the interchain account model. So yeah, very much in its infancy.
Wow, I didn't realize it had been going so long on Solana. TJ, what other ecosystems have you had experience in with liquid staking derivatives?
Yeah, I think just going back to Vish's point, we definitely in Cosmos itself have not had the adoption yet of liquid staking as a lot of these other chains. I think a lot of alternative L1s that a lot of people probably aren't even familiar with. If you go on somewhere like DeFi Llama, you can search through the liquid staking category, and there's a surprising amount of chains people might not be familiar with that still have liquid staking. Specifically, our team came from an ecosystem called Icon, and liquid staking was pretty important to the ecosystem itself in terms of increasing DeFi adoption. Obviously, when within a typical DPoS network, you have a lot of the early stake or the early tokens are staked. And if you're trying to incentivize a newer application layer, a newer DeFi ecosystem to have proper liquidity, you kind of need to have some avenue to increase capital efficiency and unlock this liquidity for the broader ecosystem. So I think obviously Ethereum is kind of leading the charge on this end, but there's plenty of other ecosystems as well that are doing it really well. I think, Lido is doing it well on Solana, but also I think Marinade Finance over there is doing a lot of cool stuff as well, specifically in terms of like permissionless delegation. And I think they're eventually going to be trying to allow users to vote specifically for validators as well. So all in all, it is good that there are a bunch of other ecosystems and protocols doing this, because I think it moves forward our industry and our space in general.
Yeah, go on, Aditya.
Yeah, I think one of the dark, I wouldn't necessarily call it maybe a dark cause, but maybe a lesser or forgotten ecosystem when it comes to DeFi in general is also the BNB ecosystem. I think that the image that has been there is just maybe about all the, maybe I'd say possibly shitcoins that deploy on BSC or just the activity that happens on the chain. But then recently, with developments that we've seen come onto the chain, obviously there has been a boom in liquid staking with pstake, Anchor, and stkADITYA majorly. But then there has been DeFi overall growth also with the likes of, Uniswap coming to the chain. There is Aave is in kind of doing a temperature check with their governance to deploy on the BNB chain. Euler was kind of supposed to and will deploy on the BNB chain as well. So I think that's also one ecosystem that's kind of primed to kind of be boomed with liquid staking.
Right, fellas. Anybody want to jump in and add any more on that point before I get to one of the final points? Bbandz, what's on your list? Because I know you were looking forward to tonight, weren't you? I hope we've changed your mind about LSDs, Bbandz, have we? A little bit.
Very, very, very little, but it's okay. I'm going to be honest. I've been kind of like trying to get my stuff together for NYC NFT. I'm so excited. I'm like leaving on Wednesday and I can't think about anything else. I'm such a terrible person. I'm sorry.
You're good. Don't worry about that. Brucey, what about your list? Because I want to ask about education before we start to wrap it up.
Yeah, I have a question. So in the Cosmos ego space, right? According to Eric, at least, we have very, very shitty tokenomics in general. So if LSDs, you kind of lean up against the chain's tokenomics that you're providing services to, right? How is that going to affect your service and your financial futures? Especially when we're talking about Stargaze, because that chain is just so diluted, or that token is just so diluted, right? And the dilution is just going to keep happening.
Yeah, I think obviously with Cosmos, there are a vast number of different chains with vastly different tokenomics. So it probably goes from a chain by chain basis. But if you do look at like some of the other liquid staking ecosystems outside the Cosmos that we were just referencing, a lot of their like inflationary models are a lot smaller in terms of like annual inflation. I think a lot of them are typically at like 10% or less annual inflation. So, and you still see liquid staking be pretty prominent within the chain. So I think while I know Eric has his points on specifically what types of things would be good or bad for these chains and their tokenomics, I do think that like liquid staking protocols will adapt to properly still provide these types of services, whether or not the chain has to make some core tokenomic changes.
I like that answer. Thank you, TJ. Vish, Adja, any of you got anything to add to that question before Robo takes it away?
Yeah, I think one thing is that, I think there's been many tokenomic mistakes in Cosmos, but I think as like a collective, we're learning, sort of. I think there's an active discussion on osmosis now to redo the tokenomics on Stargaze, a similar discussion. And yeah, I think overall, like, because back then we didn't really care about tokenomics or didn't really care about the token per se. We were building IBC, we were building some cool tech to just ship it, right? But I think now there's more maturity in that sense. And I think it's something that's definitely getting better.
Thank you, Vish. Aditya?
Yeah, I know maybe other points. I think Vish and TJ have summed it up very beautifully. That I think it's been a hassle to maybe get everything out that people might not have maybe necessarily looked inwards towards maybe what the token would do or how the token would be like. But we'll definitely get there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I was maybe making a bit of a broad statement, generalization.
When you said shitty tokenomics, Bruce, when you said the word shitty tokenomics, I was like thinking, is he going to define that? Like, there are different variations to shitty tokenomics, right? I think we can agree on that, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the ways that I wanted to kind of like wrap it up or finish it off, not that we have to, but I'm very aware of everyone's time, is about education. When I looked at like LSDs and I'm kind of figuring out like, okay, why am I not like, 1,000% like into them, like dying adhesion, etc. And I'm just thinking it's maybe just an education problem. I mean, I don't know if the guys think that education on things like LSDs have proven difficult or have proved difficult, like what it's like to penetrate that, the market that might not use a product like this that you really want to bring over. I mean, I presume that probably education's one of your biggest battles with the public. Moving forward, like Vish, what plans have you got to kind of come up against this?
Yeah, I think this is something we did really well last year when we didn't have the stresses of production. We could afford to like write a lot of stuff. But yeah, obviously, like recently it's become difficult, right? Like I think you're juggling a lot of things, right? Do you spend time writing about stuff, or do you actually like, answer user questions, debug, that sort of stuff? So yeah, I think that's definitely something to do. We definitely have plans to like get back into it full swing. So like write a lot. There's already a lot of content in like our Medium, right? If people are interested, stuff we've written in the past. But yeah, like more regular tweets, more regular, Medium articles that are not just announcing stuff, right? But rather like informing the user, like things you can do, how they work, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's definitely something as an organization we're looking to get back into in a big way.
Yeah, man, good video tutorials as well, I think, for something like this, especially when you can see like things like the looping and stuff. They're invaluable stuff, to give people the confidence to go and try it themselves, TJ, what about yourself? Any battles on the education front? Any plans moving forward?
Yeah, I'll just echo what Vish said because I do think Quicksilver and some of these other larger protocols that have been in production do have some great guides and tutorials and education within their platforms itself. I think obviously being like hands-on as like a protocol team, even within like the Discord or Telegram or Twitter, and answering like specific questions from each person can obviously be very helpful to a user. And then just like from the education standpoint, I think based on what we do as liquid staking protocols, like the core of what needs to be educated first is what like typical staking is in general. I don't think you can really understand what liquid staking necessarily is trying to do until you understand what traditional staking is and what it does to provide to a network, and then kind of like what trade-offs you are making when you do that. And then I think that's a great segue into what liquid staking is and how some of those trade-offs can be mitigated.
Aditya, you got anything to add, like, buddy?
Yep, definitely. I think what TJ mentioned is quite true, that I think liquid staking is such a niche in itself, or rather staking is such a niche in itself, POS is such a niche in itself, that liquid staking kind of lies maybe these 2-3 loops below in terms of maybe niches of a concept of a mechanism in crypto in general. So that lack of awareness is inherently going to be there. Maybe how do we, first of all, explain the problem that is trying to solve in a clear fashion that, it's intuitive to someone that something like liquid staking should exist, and then kind of go on about talking about the positives that it brings to the overall system as well as the negatives that it brings is quite vital. I think from maybe p-stake and persistence perspective, we've been kind of at it since the very beginning. We've done campaigns with CMC, CoinMarketCap, like a learn to earn campaign for liquid staking very specifically. P-stake hosts regular spaces called STK spaces, wherein we try to have like a formal rather an informal discussion like this wherein we get external speakers on board, talk about liquid staking in a very unfiltered and kind of unbiased manner. We had the very first one about decentralization of Cosmos and whether liquid staking helps it or kind of doesn't help it. We had the second one on maybe the future of BNB and where liquid staking is headed there. So yeah, I think every liquid staking protocol in general is doing their bit towards educating users so that they inherently understand what the problem it solves is.
I like that statement. Understanding the problem that it solves. That is essentially at the heart of the entire thing, isn't it? It solves a problem of illiquid capital, sitting there doing nothing when it could be going to work, right? That's exactly what it could be doing. I'm so glad, dude, that you mentioned about P-Stake and a couple of updates there. Because, guys, before we totally and utterly wrap it up, I just want to say, Quicksilver, Vish, what's the next biggest thing that's coming, or what's the next update, or the thing that you're the most buzzing about? Come on, pitch us your project before we finish, dude.
Yeah, so like one of the big things that's launching pretty soon is this thing we're calling signaling intent, right? And I've sort of mentioned it a couple of times here, which is, we let you choose your validator. Okay, that's cool, but like you need to keep track of it, right? So like, what if you have your assets on different chains? Can you still maintain your validator choice? And what if you want to redelegate, right? What if you want to change which validators you delegate to? So that is the feature what we're calling signaling intent, right? So you can do that on Quicksilver very soon. So that's one of the big feature releases for us that's coming out. Chain onboarding is on the pipeline. We're going to onboard every major chain that has interchain accounts enabled. We just onboarded Osmosis. I think last week, a liquidity pool for that is coming out. It will be incentivized as are the other pools. So yeah, I guess that some of the things that we're dealing with.
And Vish, just to clarify, is that a USP for you guys? You guys are the only ones that's doing that, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, okay. DJ, what about yourself then, buddy? Give us some updates and before we wrap it up, dude. What's coming next?
Yeah, I do think ours is pretty funny in terms of our next step is essentially just to get to mainnet launch. We're actually we're pre-launch still, and I think part of it's just because of we're going to be natively deployed on one of the new upcoming Cosmos chains called Archway. So essentially, we obviously can't launch our product until our Archway mainnet launch goes live. So we're I think we're getting really close towards getting Archway mainnet, and then obviously within a week or two of that, our protocol specifically will be deployed. But yeah, I think we're just excited to kind of be out in the wild, and obviously thankful for the opportunity to even be a part of a space like this.
No, you're welcome, dude. Honest to God, you're absolutely welcome. And may the force be with you, yeah, on your endeavors in the next coming weeks, yeah, to all of you guys, yeah. Guys, if it's okay, we have got a speaker up. He's a long time listener and a long time speaker. He's a good friend of the show, but he generally has like very, very articulate points. Now he knows we're about to wrap up, so he's made his move. Brian, would you like to join the floor?
Yeah, sir. This has been a rad space. Really, really good information. My question is around distribution, kind of like a little bit of that education. I mean, like, if you're looking like involved with like the Kepler dashboard, it has like all the different validators. Is there an aggregated place where, let's say, you guys are supporting Archway? I just heard, cool, but like all of the different liquid staking projects that kind of support Archway or Atom, is there an aggregated dashboard for liquid staking as of yet?
Yeah, so maybe I can take that. So there was a DAO called DIA DAO. They had reached us for kind of the P-Stake team to. So they were basically making what you exactly mentioned was a Notion board for an aggregation of liquid staking, not only in Cosmos, but across all POS ecosystems. So what they've kind of, and when they contacted us for, kind of, because P-Stake is live on ETH as well as BNB, they wanted maybe to get that information. But at that time, they didn't have a Cosmos section entirely. So, that is when maybe we took the charge of having Cosmos involved also, because people often kind of look over Cosmos in general. So we created that Cosmos, kind of contributed to making that Cosmos dashboard. We had Vish who contributed the Quicksilver the page that is there. Vish from Stride again also contributed to the Stride dashboard that is there. And they kind of launched this dashboard that is not only for Cosmos, but overall for all liquid staking providers in POS.
How do I get to that? Yeah.
What I can do is maybe I can link that to you. I think P-Stake had also talked about this, but I can send you a DM after this.
That'd be rad. Thank you.
Anything else, Brian? Are you good?
I'm good. I think there's a huge opportunity around aggregating all of the different options. As the amount of different options grow, it's kind of like, hey, I'm going to pull on Wind or I'm going to pull on Osmosis. Like, there's a bunch of DEX aggregators out there. Maybe there's like some value in having like a liquid staking aggregator. Like, what do I get versus, P-Stake versus Quicksilver, et cetera,
Yep, there are actually protocols who do this in the Ethereum ecosystem too. I think there's a protocol called LSD Protocol, who not only maybe aggregates information, but they aggregate actual liquid staking tokens. So you can just deposit ETH and kind of get an exposure to all these underlying individual liquid staking providers, which could also be, just a sign of the ecosystem maturing. Obviously, we kind of, I think, far away from that in Cosmos, but do feel like maybe that's natural.
Right, Brucey boy, Bbandz, got any words before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I just want to know about the liquid NFTs. NFT LSDs. You're going to make them for us?
What are you talking about, Bruce? You're talking about tonight?
No.
Tonight?
No, not that. I think you're going to mention that later. But I was just talking about the liquid staking derivatives, NFTs, if that's something that's in the pipeline. I was hoping that Backbone Labs were here because they'll probably
add
something on it.
I did message them. So, yeah, maybe we can keep that one for another one, Brucey, yeah? Maybe we'll have one dedicated just to that, right?
Let's do that.
Right, gentlemen,
also,
I have to...
What do you mean by liquid staking derivative NFT? Is it just like similar to LSM shares, or what exactly is that?
Isn't it B-Luna, Bruce, what they're doing at the moment, isn't it?
I'm not sure how B-Luna is linked to NFTs yet, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that Backbone Labs have something in the works around that.
Grave Digger, right? It's called the Grave Digger. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're doing something. I'm not 100% on exactly what it is that they're doing, but they're doing something with an NFT derivative. Yeah. Guys, I just want to listen from RAC FM. I just want to thank you guys, or from the bottom of my heart. When we set out to do this, it was more about our curiosity than anything else, and you've answered everything eloquently tonight. Really, really happy, guys. I just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts today, guys. And if you can hear a motorbike, that's because I've just left my house and I live in Bangkok, yeah? But TJ, Vish, I have to thank you very much, guys, for coming up today, yeah?
Yeah, thank you guys for having us. It was awesome.
Thank you for having us, yeah. It's really great. Super fun.
No problem, guys. And keep your eyes out for a RAC FM special NFT that might be dedicated to this episode in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I'll hit you guys up and make sure you get a copy, okay? Right, lovely.
Also,
Everybody,
hopefully we meant that with Q Atom on stars.
Yeah, that would be nifty, wouldn't it? I'd like to see something like that, actually, dude. We'll have to have a chat in the DMs, yeah. But yeah, guys, from RAC FM, this is us over and out. That's been the LSD Summit. So thanks to all of the panelists, thanks to the co-hosts as well, and obviously Brian for jumping up at the end there. Very, very grateful, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the next show, yeah. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
It's the RAC show coming from the RAC store. With this back in the Mac in the back flow. Let's go, chillin' with raccoons by the back door. Take calls so you can stake more. All I wanna do is making dough, right? But I found this crew and doing alright. We RAC will bitch, ready to fight. So many raccoons ready for the boss life. I might fly high like a kite, right? But always ready for a shite for the right price. Raccoon supply has the right price. Give giving you respect if it's likewise. So I'm buying all the mean guys with the clean heart. Read between lies, laser beam through lean eyes. Larry or with clean lies, trash mouth, mean smile, be wise. NFT wise, fuck with these guys. It's the rack rap from the back lab. 100 NFTs in my backpack. Crazy rack rap from the stash app. Rack will taking lead in this haystack. It's the rack rap from the back lab. 100 NFTs in my backpack. Crazy rack back from the stash app. Rack will taking lead in this haystack. Blast that rack rap from the stash app. Supplying the raccoons with a headbang rap. Rack gang with the rack will slang like a trash can. Hoodie with fangs and a gold chain. It's either rack will or the red pill. Best chill while we get into the first meal. Best feel, best devs with the best skill. No shill, all real, secret is a great deal. Rack will insane, Shane better stand fast. Robo shooting his tweets with straight facts. Knowledge from the street, with the best plan yet. Winston gotta eat if you retweet that. Free of a live feed from the base camp. McKenna always ready if you dare that. Buying all raccoons for his rare stash. Trash panda biker gang, motherfucking hashtag. It's the rack rap from the back lab. 100 NFTs in my backpack. Crazy rack rap from the stash app. Rack will taking lead in this haystack. It's the rack rap from the back lab. 100 NFTs in my backpack. Crazy rack back from the stash app. Rack will taking lead in this haystack.
TerraSpaces.